said levered firm has 10%, 5 lakh debentures. So 10% of 5 lakh. 50,000. And here it is nil. So EBT will be 1 lakh minus 50,000, that is 50,000. And here it will be full 1 lakh. There is no taxes, so I'm removing this column completely. We will also call this only as net income. So EBT or net income. Now we have the net income values. We can find the market value of debt and market value of equity. Formula for market value of debt is interest upon KD or cost of debt. Interest here we saw is 50,000 rupees. Divided by equity debt cost is 10%. So divided by 0.1, you will get 5 lakh as debt and nil for unlevered firm because they don't borrow. Market value of equity, net income divided by cost of equity. Net income of the levered firm is 50,000. And now let's see the cost of equity of the levered firm is 16%. So to consider this as cost of equity. So 50,000 divided by 0.16. We'll get the value of equity as 3,12,500. And for the unlevered firm, the net income is 1 lakh divided by the equity capitalization is 12.5%. You can see here unlevered firm cost of equity is 0.125. So 1 lakh divided by 0.125, you will get it as 8 lakhs. So market value of firm five lakh plus 3,12,500, you will get 8,12,500, and for unlevered firm it is 8 lakh. Till here, any doubts, anybody? I hope it's clear.
Yes,
Let's
ma'am.
now start with the arbitrage process. You'll have to be very careful and listen carefully, because if you understand the first problem properly, then you'll understand the rest of them also very well. So whatever doubts you have, you can stop me in between, or you can ask at the end of the problem as well. No problem if I have to repeat it twice also, but understanding is more important. So let's start now. Just see here, all of you. First, I'll take you to the question and make you understand what they're trying to say. They have asked you to find the value of both the firms. So we have found it here, 8,12,000 and 8 lakh, and show whether arbitrage process is possible. So I'll just tell you what is arbitrage again. In short, arbitrage is nothing but buying from the company whose value is low and selling in the company whose value is high. Okay, so we are buying shares of the company which is undervalued, and we are selling shares of the company which is overvalued. Now here in yellow highlight and red font, if you could see, you have the value of both the companies. Levered firm value is 8,12,500 and unlevered is 8 lakh. Can you tell me which is undervalued firm and which is overvalued firm? Looking at both the values, can you tell me which is undervalued, which is overvalued?
Firm L is undervalued, ma'am.
Firm
L.
L is overvalued. No, see, it's 8,12,500.
No, ma'am, I said it is undervalued.
Okay, it is overvalued. And firm U is undervalued. So whichever firm has higher value, we call it as overvalued. Whichever has lower value, we call it as undervalued. So this is clear with everyone. So arbitrage basically says you have to buy shares of the firm which is undervalued, and you have to sell the shares of the firm which is overvalued. So let's check how to work on it now. They have told you to use this Mr. X as an example and show how the arbitrage process works. So what has Mr. X done? If Mr. X holds 10% of the shares of levered firm, so which is the levered firm? It is firm L. So Mr. X is holding 10% of firm L shares, which is the levered firm. Let's see how it works. So first what we will do, we will write the position of Mr. X. So I am writing it here. Mr. X position in levered firm. Why levered firm? Because they have told in the question he has 10% shares of the levered firm. Okay, so first I am writing his percentage of shares in the levered firm. As they have told, he has 10% shares. So we will write 10% of the equity value. Okay, what is the equity value of levered firm? It is 8,12,500. Of this, he is owning 10%. So whatever shares they are, 8,12,500 rupees, the value, 10% of this is of Mr. X. So 10% of 8 lakh, sorry, 8,12,500 is the total value of the firm. He is owning only the equity. Just see here, the equity value is 3,12,500. So we are interested in this equity value, not the total value of the firm. They've clearly told Mr. X holds 10% of shares of the levered firm. This total value is for debt plus equity. He is holding only shares, so we are going to take only that. Is that fine? So 3 lakh
Yes, ma'am.
12,500, 10% is 31,250. This is what he owns. Now, if he has shares, that means he is eligible to get the dividend also. So he should also get dividend as 10%. Now, dividend is paid on what? On the income available to equity shareholders. Now, which is the income available to equity shareholders? It is nothing but the net income. The net income part is the income available to equity shareholders. Is that clear? Because we have paid interest, and after that remaining 50,000, there are no taxes given in the firm, no tax rate mentioned. So we are going to take this 50,000 as income of equity shareholders. Of this, 10% Mr. X should get because he has 10% shares. So he has 10% profit sharing also. So 10% of 50,000, it will be 5,000. Now what I'll do is I'll underline this 5,000. You can also underline it in your books by putting 2 lines. Here I'm underlining it only once. This is his position in firm X. This is what is given in the question. Just see here. If Mr. X holds 10% of the shares in levered firm. Now we have to show arbitrage process. Arbitrage process means he has to sell the shares of overvalued firm and he has to buy the shares of undervalued firm. So he is already having 10% of overvalued firm. He has to sell this and he has to buy the shares of company U. Okay, so we'll now start with, I'll just leave a line so that you understand better. Mr. X position in unlevered firm. So from levered, he is moving to unlevered. That is what is arbitrage. Sell shares of overvalued company and buy shares of undervalued company. So before going to his position in unlevered firm, what we have to do is we have to ensure and see how much funds he has. So first we'll find the total funds with Mr. X. Now, when he will go from this company to this company, that is from levered firm to unlevered firm, whatever he owns in the levered firm, he has to sell this first and then go to unlevered firm. So, when he will sell this, he will get how much? 31,250 rupees. So, first he will sell the shares of levered firm and he will get 31,250 rupees. I am writing it in the inner column, you can say, because there's some more things that I have to take it out. So you can make 2 columns, or maybe I will add it only. This is the inner column. Okay, so total funds, sell the shares of levered firm and he will get 31,250. Okay, now this is one source of funds that he has. Now it is very important, please listen all of you. In the first line of the problem, it was told, assume that two firms are identical in all respect, except that levered firm borrows and unlevered doesn't. So if they are identical in all respect, then their risk also should be identical. And in my last class, I told you, levered firm, if they borrow, they take risk, but unlevered firm doesn't take risk. So if they don't take risk, what the investor should do? He should go for last class I explained, team 1 and team 2. Team 1 is buying shares of my company, I'm borrowing. Team 2 is buying shares of some other company which is not borrowing. So to make the risk same, they will have to borrow personally, and we call it as personal leverage or homemade leverage. Remember?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Mr. X will also take homemade leverage because he wants to make the risk same. In firm L, he had risk because firm L borrowed. Now, when he is going to firm U doesn't has risk because they are not borrowing. But he wants everything to be identical or same. So what he will do, if firm U is not borrowing, he will borrow it by himself on his personal name, or he will take a personal loan. We call it as homemade leverage. Now we agreed that he will borrow, but how much he will borrow? Just listen carefully. In firm L, the company had 5 lakh debentures and Mr. X was 10% owner. Means of that 5 lakh, 10% risk was of Mr. X, because if the company closed down or shuts down, 10% of Mr. X investment would have gone because company wouldn't have paid anything. So in firm L, he had 10% risk of that 5 lakh rupees. Same risk he wants to carry to firm U. So what he should borrow? He should borrow 10% of 5 lakh rupees because he carried the same risk in company U. Did you understand how I took 10% of 5 lakh? Any doubts here? Any doubts, anybody?
No, ma'am.
I will explain you again with little bit of example. Suppose you are staying in a house and now from that rented house you want to move to another rented house and you want both the house to be similar. You don't want to make any compromise, right? So what you will do, whatever things you had in the old house, you will carry them as it is to the new house so that you can get the same comforts and the same feeling of staying at home, right? You're not going to buy new things or think of anything else because you want both the homes to be identical in every respect. You're moving out to a new place, but you want it to be same like the old place. So what you will do, you will carry all your old furniture, all your old equipments, TV and everything as it is to the new house. Same is happening here. Mr. X is saying both the firms are identical. So in firm L, if I had risk, 10% risk of the total borrowing, which is 5 lakh rupees, I will carry the same risk to firm U. So I will borrow 10% of 5 lakh rupees on my own name and I will go to firm U. So 10% of 5 lakh rupees is 50,000. So this is what he will borrow. So 31,250 plus 50,000. How much money he has now? How much? 81,250. Any doubts still here? This is the first step of going to unlevered firm. First, he is seeing how much I have money in my pockets. So he will first sell the shares of levered firm and he will get 31,250. Second, he will say, I want to keep the same risk, so let me go and borrow from the bank. But how much to borrow? Same risk, so I will borrow same amount which L I had. So L borrowed 5 lakh rupees for the full company. I was 10% owner. I'll take 10% of 5 lakh and I will come in this form. So 50,000, which is 10% of 5 lakh, plus 31,250, which he got by selling the shares. In total, in his hands or in his pockets, now he has 81,250 rupees. Now he will buy the shares of firm U because he has money. So Mr. X will buy the shares of firm U. How many shares he will buy? He will buy 10% of the shares again because he had 10% position in the previous firm. See here, previous firm 10% of equity share value. Same position he wants in the new firm. So 10% of equity share value again. So how much is 10% of equity share value? Let's see. For firm U, if you observe, equity value is 8 lakh. Market value of equity that we calculated, it is 8 lakh. So of 8 lakh, 10%. So that comes to how much?
80,000.
80,000. Till here, any doubts? He was with firm L. It was overvalued firm. So he wanted to sell the shares of firm L and go to firm U. When he was thinking of going to firm U, he saw how much money he has. So he found out his total funds. Then after using his total funds, he bought the shares of firm U. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now that he has bought the shares of firm U, he should also get dividend in firm U because he is 10% owner. So we will also calculate dividend for him, which is 10% of the net income of firm U, which is nothing but the income available to equity shareholders, which is 1 lakh. Of this 1 lakh, 10% he will get as dividend. So of 1 lakh, 10% is how much? 10,000. I'm writing it again in the inner column. I'll tell you why. But did you understand it here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now this full 10,000 is not his because he has borrowed, right? Remember, he took a homemade leverage. Now when you borrow or you take a personal loan, it is not for free. You have to pay interest on that loan. So he has to pay interest on the loan from his dividend income, whatever he is earning. In the previous case, what happened? Company borrowed. When company borrowed, company paid the interest. So from EBIT, it was deducted and the remaining profit was given to Mr. X. But here, company didn't borrow. So Mr. X has got full profit. But Mr. X has borrowed on his own. So from that full profit of 10,000, he should pay interest because he has borrowed on his own name. He has taken personal loan. So from this dividend, we will do less interest on homemade leverage. Okay, so for that we'll find how much he has borrowed. He has borrowed 50,000 rupees. See here, 50,000 is what he has borrowed. And we'll check what was the interest rate of the company. Same interest he is going to pay. So levered firm has 10% 5 lakh debentures. So the interest rate was 10%. 50,000 10% he will pay, which is equal to 5,000 rupees. So from 10,000, he'll pay 5,000 interest. So how much is the remaining income? 5,000. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you see here.
Yes, ma'am.
I had underlined 5,000 earlier also and I'm underlining 5,000 here also. Why I have underlined? Just to show you that income in company L is equal to income in company U. What he was earning in L, the same he is earning in U. Okay. Now what is the arbitrage gain then? When he is earning same in both the firms, where is the arbitrage gain? The arbitrage gain is in savings. Just see here, I'm showing you. Arbitrage gain is equals to 81,250 which he had minus 80,000 which he used to buy the share. So the remaining 1,250 is his gain. Are you understanding it? So he has gained in his investment outlay. What he had invested in the company has reduced and he is able to make the same gain. Let us go back to firm L. In firm L, just see, he had 31,250 investment, plus of this 5 lakh rupees loan, 10% was his risk. So 31,250 plus 50,000 risk, total 81,250 he had. We don't say that he had that much money invested, but risk he carried. So 81,250, he was getting 5,000 rupees. Here you see he has invested only 80,000 rupees and he's still getting 5,000. So 1,250 is what he has saved. So we call it as arbitrage gain. Any doubt with this problem from beginning to end, please let me know. The problem ends here. You have to show this gain. This is very, very important to be shown. Once you show this arbitrage gain and same income in both the companies, the problem is solved. Please let me know if any doubts. Otherwise, we'll start with the next sum.
No conclusion needed, ma'am.
Conclusion is this only, that arbitrage gain is this much. Or you can also write Mr. X gains rupees 1,250 by reducing his investment outlay from 81,250 to 80,000. If you want this additional line, you can add, but even if you don't add, it is okay. They just want the arbitrage gain, which you have shown in the table clearly, highlighting it. So that is more than enough. Any other doubts, anybody? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Should we go to the next problem? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next problem. Just increase the font so you can read it properly. Okay. The following is the data regarding two companies A and B belonging to the same risk class. So they've given you number of ordinary shares. So company A, company B, market price per share, 6% debentures and the value of that, and profit before interest. So they have given you EBI, or you can also call it as EBIT. There's no tax rate in the problem, so they call it profit before interest. All profits after debenture interest are distributed as dividends. Explain how under approach an investor holding 10% of shares in company A will be better off in switching his holdings to company B. This is the word here. Okay, so they are telling that from A, he wants to move to B. And why from A to B, anybody? Because A is a overvalued firm and B is an undervalued firm. Or you can say A is a levered firm because it borrows and B is unlevered firm because it is not borrowing. Okay, now they have not given the value of both the firms. So before calculating the value, you cannot say over under. We will find the value of both the firms. So I'll write here value of firm. You can write it as working note on value of firm. Okay. Now what we will do here is we cannot use the net income approach because we don't have the equity capitalization rate. If I have to use the net income approach, they have to give me equity capitalization rate for both the firms and then I can calculate value of equity. So instead of that, what they have done is they have given you number of shares and they have given you market price per share. So if I multiply number of shares with market price per share, I will get the value of the shares. And they have given the value of debt already, so we can find the value of the company. So I'll just insert a table and we'll do it. Two companies A and B. First we'll say market value of equity. Now because they have given us the number of shares and the share price, we will multiply them. So I'll write here number of shares into market price per share. If I do this, I'll get the value of shares. So I'll write it here in bracket. For company A, the number of shares are 90,000. So 90,000 shares into the market price per share is 1 rupee 20 paisa, 1.2. So 90,000 into 1.2, if I do, the value of shares will be 1,08,000. And in case of company B, the 1,50,000 shares into the share price is 1 rupee. So 1,50,000 into 1 rupee, it is equal to 1,50,000. So this is the market value of equity. Now let's write the market value of debt. Market value of debt is given here. Just see 6% debentures. For company A, it is 60,000. For company B, it is nil. So for company A, we will take it as 60,000, and for company B, I'll keep it as nil. Now value of the firm, A plus B, sorry, market value of equity plus market value of debt. So we'll add both. 1,08,000 plus 60,000, you get 1,68,000, and here 1,50,000. So these are the values of both the firms. Now we can do the arbitrage process easily and find out what will be the gain if the investor moves from company A to company B. We'll write here arbitrage process. So now it's not Mr. X, they have not mentioned the name. So we'll just write investor's position in levered firm. No, now they have named the firm, so we will call it as firm A. So investor's position in firm A we have to find, and just look here what they have told. An investor holding 10% of the shares of company A. So he is holding 10% of company A shares. Just see the market value of equity for company A. It is 1,08,000. So the investor is holding 10% of 1,08,000, which is equal to
10,800.
10,800. Now we have to find the dividend for that particular investor. But before we do that, we should know the net income. So I missed one working note. We will write working note on net income, or we can call it as earnings available to equity shareholders. So how do we find earnings available to equity shareholders? We have to do EB, this is A and this is B. So EBIT, they've given in the question profit before interest, which is nothing but EBIT, 18,000 for both the firms. From this we have to do less interest. Now they have told that company A borrows 6% debentures, 60,000. So of 60,000 we have to find 6%. 60,000 into 0.06. You get 3,600. And here it is nil. So we'll get the net income, which is 18,000 minus 3,600, which is equal to 14,400, and here full 18,000. So now we know the net income. We can find the dividend of the investor in the firm A. So the investor holds 10%, so he should get 10% of the income. The total income to equity shareholders is 14,400. 10% of that he has to gain. So 10% of 14,400 is 1,440, which is to be underlined because we have to see to it that in the next firm also he gets the same income. So this was his position in firm A. Now let's see the investor's position. We'll not call him Mr. X, because they have not named. Investor's position in firm B, the unlevered firm, they have given the name firm B. Total funds with the investor. So what he'll do, he will sell the shares of firm A. So if he sells the shares of firm A, he'll get 10,880. So that is what is his. Okay, then he has to borrow homemade leverage because firm A was borrowing, firm B is not borrowing. He wants to make the same risk moving from one house to other house, but you want the same ambience, so you will take everything that you have in this house to that house. Same way, from one company to other company, he wants both the companies to be identical, so he will take the risk also to there. So here he was 10% owner of debt, and debt was 60,000 rupees. So of this 60,000 rupees, 10% is what he will borrow. So 60,000 into 10%. How much you get?
6,000. Ma'am, how that 10,880?
10,880 is he has sold the shares of firm A. See here, investor's position in firm A. He was holding 10% of equity value. So 1,08,000 is 10%. He was holding, sorry, 10,800, right? He was holding 10,800 and he will sell that same 10,800. So 10,800 plus 6,000. Totally he has now 16,800. Is that clear? Now we will go to firm B and buy the shares of firm B. So 10% off. We'll see how much is the equity value of firm B. We have done it in the first working note. The value, market value of equity for firm B is 1,50,000. So of this 1,50,000, he will buy 10% shares. So 10% of 1,50,000, which is equal to 15,000. Okay, now what we will do? We will also give him dividend. He is 10% owner of the shares, so he should get 10% share in the net income. Net income of company B is 18,000 rupees. So in 18,000 rupees, he will get 10%. 10% of 18,000 is 1800. Now that he has taken loan, he has to pay interest for that homemade leverage. How much loan he has taken? He has taken only 6,000 rupees, 10% of 60,000. So 6,000 is the loan, and we have to check what is the interest rate. Can anybody tell me what is the interest rate that I should take? I'm showing you the question. Tell me what is the interest rate I should take? 6%. Okay, so 6% debentures given here clearly. We'll take it as 6%. So on 6,000, he will pay 6% interest, which comes to 360 rupees. So 1800 minus 360, he will get an income of 1,440. If you see, same income in both the firms, but how much is he gaining? What is the arbitrage gain? 16,800 he had. From that 15,000 he invested. So how much is he gaining?
1,800.
1,800 is the arbitrage gain. Are the problems clear?
Yes, ma'am.
What you have to take care is where I have to take 10%, where I have to take interest rate, because most of the sums are such that they are using 10% for investor position as well as 10% for interest rate. So you have to be present minded in exam. What is the exact rate that I have to take and I have to solve. Okay. Now I have recorded both the sums. Maybe you can later watch the video and revise.